fellow travelers, welcome on in to the RPG Cave, level 134. I'm one of your hosts, the level 199 human Dark Lord, Ryan Turford, and I am joined, as always, by the level 199 elf battle alchemist, Dr. Garret Bland. How's it going, Garret?
I'm doing good. Am I elf or half elf? I keep forgetting this. I
have always referred to you as an elf.
Okay, full
I've had
elf.
other people on the
cool
show
with
that have been half elves.
Oh,
but
okay,
you have been, you've always been the elf. Always been
Oh,
the
okay,
elf.
cool. Just with the pointy ears and everything. All right, sounds good.
Well, we can't both be humans. That'd be boring.
That'd be very boring. Now, a half elf. Is it always presumed that the other half is human?
Yeah, in most forms. But you're right. It's weird because, like, in theory, half elves could like
it could be any other half.
Be any other race.
It could be an orc. It could be a dwarf. It could be a tiefling. Yeah. No, you're right.
Could be a half dragon if you wanted to.
Well, I mean, we're going crazy over here. All right, sounds good. The weather's good here. That's my one thing.
Yeah,
that I got going on.
That's good. I like the fact that you switched from the 3 things to now 1 thing 2 weeks in a row now.
Yeah, no, there's just it's so many things go through my head. During the week, it's like that's the thing I need to put in the show, and I just keep forgetting.
That's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah. And I don't want to put any video game stuff because we're going to talk about video games later.
We're going to talk
My
about
life is
Garrett's
not
looking at the
that
document.
interesting. All right. So yeah, I'm looking at the document right now.
There's a lot in there. So we're going to talk about lots of video games later. But I'm glad you bring up the weather, of course, because as
the weather's good, dude.
Yeah.
Like it's no joke. No rain, very minimal rain the past few weeks, which is fine.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of. We're not. I wouldn't say we're out of the drought of. I don't know if we're ever out of the drought in California, but it's pretty good. I see green. I see lush green. I actually go to my work building. There's like a big hill right next to me, and when I started working there, it was pretty brown. Now it's lush green everywhere. All the grass is everywhere, and you just want to just take a journey on there. Like Lord of the Rings.
Nice. Just like Yon 32's friend over here, my friend of mine lives in Vancouver and also takes a boat to work.
No joke. That's like high level, city living right there. Taking a boat to work is like pretty nice, and you get a nice view of the city. No one's bothering you. There's very minimal people. I have Wi-Fi in that boat, and so I can work. I can play video games or whatever, and yeah, it's a good time. Speaking on that, segue. I put emulators on my phone.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, you have an iPhone, and you must have.
I don't have an iPhone. I have an Android, but it just motivated me. It's like, hey, they already have emulators.
I was gonna say y'all
Android.
have had them forever.
Yeah, RetroArch is kind of baked in.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm surprised how bad the user experience is with RetroArch. It's pretty bad. Like you can't just go straight in and do stuff. Like it's like play a game or whatever, or load a ROM. You got to figure out the cores. You got to figure out the touchscreen bezels. It's a whole thing, and I'm just quite surprised. RetroArch's been around for the longest time, and they just didn't want to improve it in any way. So
yeah,
interesting.
I've always had good usage of it on PC, but I've never really tried RetroArch on my phone.
It's kind of harder because the scaling of the text is so off on the RetroArch app. It's different than your default font on your phone. It's not even like I feel like it's putting another layer of like weird text on top of what your phone actually is compared to other apps where it's just like it's kind of normal. It's kind of natural text size. But this one, I don't know. It's it even like layers over a battery icon. Like what app does that? But anyways, it's fine. It works well. I can play. I'm sure I can play up to like GameCube or whatever on that thing. But yeah, I just put I only put very minimal stuff like RPGs from like Game Boy Color, and DS. So yeah.
I mean, you're already on a boat. It's one small step from being a pirate, according to Yon 32.
Yeah. All right, we can play Sea of Thieves. Let's go, Ryan. Let's ship to the high seas on our PS5s.
Please.
Let's go.
I mean, it's there now, but like I ain't doing that because it's got pirates in it. Even though I'm on a PlayStation podcast,
I need to convince you to play a pirate game. There needs to be one pirate game that you're interested in.
Really?
Not really.
No, I mean, again, it's like there hasn't been one with gameplay mechanics that have pulled me in despite
What
the
about
pirate
Monkey
theme.
Island? Are you a click adventure dude at all?
I mean, I think they're fine, but like
they're fine. Okay.
they're like the problem with those games, Garrett. I don't know if you played one in a while. It's
No,
like,
no, I haven't.
They are the logic in those games makes absolutely no sense. So like you have to play them with a guide, or else it makes literally no sense. It's like they're like, oh well, you need to use this like crane to pull something out of the sea. So you need to find an elastic band somewhere that's gonna allow you to hook a fish to the conveyor belt to then operate the crane to pull something out of the water, and that logic makes no sense.
That sounds like a game I don't want to play. So
exactly.
Well, anyways.
I understand. Again, I like the humor in those games, but those just the act of playing those games.
I think the only pirate game I was really into and played / not a pirate game is Assassin's Creed 4. Okay. Black Flag. Yeah. It's a pirate game, but it's like Assassin's Creed 2, so it's kind of cheating a little bit.
See, by then I was already over the original Assassin's Creed formula, so
it makes sense.
It was very tough for me to get into that game because I'm one of those people who actually likes the newer style of Assassin's Creed games, which is
I do too. It's
opinion.
just so bloated. It's just so much work involved in those games.
With Valhalla specifically, they went too far with that dial. I agree with you with that. But like, both Syndicate and Odyssey and Origins, I love all three of those games. I think those games
finished
are awesome.
Origins. I think that's the last one I finished all the way through. I need to go through the rest of them, but who has time for that?
I was gonna say just
who has time
throw more
that?
games onto the pile, Garrett. Just shovel them in there.
I love Assassin's Creed games. Used to be my popcorn junk food like kind of game. I love checkbox. I love going through and just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna save this one guy out of the 500 events within this condensed map of, I platinumed what was it, AC Unity. That's it. Okay. Yeah. The
French one, the one that everyone didn't like, where it's like the person
no one liked it,
no
but
face.
Yeah, they fixed it, and now still no one likes it. I think it's a good one, but anyways,
I've heard it's not that bad.
Yeah, done with my tangent. I'm good.
Yeah. I feel like we've delayed long enough. Although I will preface this for the audience at home. Tonight's show, Garrett and I talked about it before we started tonight, but like we kind of wanted to do kind of like a chill show tonight, where tonight will be probably something closer to like the drives. Like the PlayStation Drive or Xbox Drive or something.
The RPG Drive, let's go.
Yeah, I mean this is probably the closest you'll ever get to the RPG Drive tonight, where it's just gonna be kind of actually. Obviously, we have a big topic. It's metaphor ReFantazio. We'll get to that in a bit, but we're kind of take it easy for tonight. But
sounds good.
We should probably clear the dungeon so we can get to the raid boss as quickly as possible, Garrett. Because these trash mobs, they're getting in the way. They're delaying our adventure. Man. Yeah. I mean, they're pirate themed. I don't like them very much. So, folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of amazing ways you can do that. Number one, if you're watching the live stream right meow over at youtube.com/carpoolgaming, or if you're watching the video on demand later, don't forget to hit that like button, kick that subscribe button, and let us know in the comments below, are you excited for Metaphor ReFantazio? We would love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments below what you think about that. Also, if you're listening on audio feeds, don't forget to rate us if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, or maybe, leave us a nice Apple Podcast review, or the best thing you can do is simply subscribing to us on your podcast feed of choice, because that helps us get into the algorithm and people to discover this amazing show. Also, if you want one big podcast feed with the entire Carpool Gaming cinematic universe on it, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/carpoolgaming, just like CowboyDangerD, who has officially joined the gold member tier. So shout out to CowboyDangerD for heading on over there, for moseying on over there, because he's a cowboy. So he's got to mosey over there, Garrett. And then last but not least, of course, if you want an RPG Cave t-shirt or any other merch from our Carpool Gaming shows, head on over to our website, carpoolgaming.com. We got all that stuff over there. Well, without further ado, Garrett, it is time to read from the sacred texts, although this is like a multi-topical night tonight. As I mentioned, we're kind of having like a relaxed night. So it's going to be like 3 kind of like not super large topics. So Garrett, real quick, we didn't talk about this ahead of the show. Do we want to get our game impressions out of the way first, that what you've been playing segment, or do we want to dive deep into metaphor first? What do you think?
We could do the what you've been playing section first.
Okay.
Just kind of go through it.
Okay. Because there were 2 games we wanted to highlight tonight.
Sure.
Or at least, unless you've got another game you want to highlight, Garret. But,
No, I think, the game I'll speak about.
So I'm going to start with you, man. Since you started talking, Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yeah.
You wanted to talk more about it, so tell me about it, man.
I do. I'm wondering if we'll do a separate episode with someone else that's really into it or not, because I think it's interesting. This game, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. But, after going through, I don't know how many hours. It must have been at least 20, 25 hours or something like that.
Okay.
I could feel the fatigue coming in, at least for me, going through this game. So just to back up, Dragon's Dogma 2 is an action RPG from Capcom. It's their sequel to Dragon's Dogma 1. And it recently became available. And I guess really the major emphasis on this one, it's a high fantasy action RPG, but on top of that, it's like, it's not, there's some narrative to it. There's a main story to it, but it's not really the focus of the game as much. It's really about the exploration, the combat, but not so much. I mean, there are side quests in there, but I wouldn't say, oh my gosh, I remember this side quest. This one was crazy, or this one was interesting, or this one was whack. Like, it doesn't have any, I would say, very memorable moments within the side quest, but more in terms of your combat and your interaction with your pawns, which is kind of your other big mechanic too. So, you're this guy, or a girl, whatever character you make up. He's chosen as the Arisen, and they get special powers, which is controlling pawns, which are just they look like other NPCs or characters, but you just control them. And they're like kind of this separate being or
they're kind of like your party members, but they just don't really have like personalities or anything.
Exactly. Well, yeah, they don't have personality, but they could just chatter like crazy in this game. It's so I just need them to shut up every once in a while. But that's besides the point. You get your main pawn, which is your second pawn. Excuse me. It's always with you. The character's always with you. You get to choose the class or vocation that's associated with that character, and you can level, put equipment on them. It's basically your squire. You can put all the equipment and heavy items, and helps you out. And then you can recruit 2 more pawns into your party. And so it's a total party size of 4. And it doesn't matter really what you do. You could make them all one vocation, or you can make them all different vocations or whatever. They'll help you out a lot throughout the game. And it's actually pretty interesting because if you hire a pawn, it's like coming from another player, like another player in another system or whatever. And that pawn has a memory of like the game that they experience into your game. So they will suggest, hey, my master had found a treasure over here. Let me take it to you. Let me show it to you, which I think is pretty cool. It gives you some guidance on top of anything else. I was gonna say, because that sounds infinitely more helpful than the notes people leave in Dark Souls, but similar kind of idea. Yeah, definitely. And going through this, it's definitely not a checkbox list game. It's not even a Elder Scroll level, like, go to quests certain here and there. You've really got to explore yourself, this land, and you're very just driven by just going to various places, regions of interest. I mainly go and explore by like setting a quest. Like there's a point B I would say, pretty far off, but to get there, it's kind of hard to get there. You don't fast travel in this game. You can go by ox cart, which are set destination points from one city to the next, or you can use a port item crystal thing where it teleports you to a port crystal where there's very limited numbers. So most of your traversal is through walking and going around.
So not so much fast travel, like barely any, like it's limited.
Yeah. So it's your journey, or you playing the game is you literally walking through the game. It's not going from quest, fast traveling, whatever. It's like you're choosing a vocation, you're raising your level, you're raising that vocation level up, and you're going with your pawns to point B, but there could be point C, D, E, F, or whatever. Crazy amount of different things involved. So yeah, I think the highlights of this game is really the battles system and the combat. It's really riddled with a lot of monsters in this world. You got to be very careful because you need to save often, but you don't have a set save state. You can't just load back to a previous state. And so I think that's one major flaw of this game, is that you can literally get stuck. Like if you battle, like, let's say a big monster and you die, and let's say, okay, you can only do two things. You can go back to your previous save, or your previous autosave or whatever. And that could be in the middle of the battle. So maybe you get stuck. So the last thing, the other save point you can do is from your last inn rest. Like if you literally rested at an inn, that's another save point, and that could be hours if you're not careful. So yeah, I think that's one major thing.
So like, hold the phone, Garret. Why the heck does the game autosave when you're in the middle of battle? Like, where's the logic there?
I think it kind of trips up. I think it bugs a little bit sometimes because it's pretty natural to go into a battle. It's not like you approach a boss, it's like, all right, cutscene, let's do a boss. No, it's very like, okay, you're in, here's an HP bar up, and you're going to attack and interact it as much as you can. Most of the time with, like, let's say dragons and griffins, they fly away. And they just go away. They're just like, hey, I'm kind of done fighting you, and I'm just going to go away. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. So it's a little bit, I would say the dynamics of the combat is pretty complicated. So sometimes it just autosaves. It autosaves like crazy in this game, too. It's not like once every 10, 15 minutes. It's like 2 minutes, and then like, here's another autosave. Here's another autosave. But yeah, anyways.
That kind of reminds me of Mass Effect 1, because Mass Effect 1... It like the autosave is kind of terrible in that game, where it'll save at, very key points, but like kind of what you described before, it can kind of like paint you into a corner. So you really have to like just assume that the autosave isn't there and just use the manual save, or else you're gonna screw yourself with certain
pretty much. It's kind of crazy. The major battles are pretty fun. There's like, as I said, griffins and dragons. There's also like big ogres and big bosses and stuff like that. There's like this rock, the major like rock monster that reminds me of from Legend of Zelda, actually.
Okay.
No joke.
I thought for a second there you were going to talk about the rock monsters from Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Oh, of course. Yes, I know that one.
Yes, where, for folks that don't know the story, William Shatner, who directed the film, it was his directorial debut. He wanted this whole scene where there's like the crew of the Enterprise fight like 20 rock monsters. But like, so they started to put them together, and they're like, oh, we don't have the budget to build 20 rock monsters. How about 10? Which then became 5, which then became 3, which then became a single rock monster, and then they got half done developing the costume for the rock monster, and it looked terrible. So they just forget about it. No, we're not doing rock monsters for this movie. It's ridiculous. And then the best part is the parody movie Galaxy Quest, which of course parodied Star Trek, had a big section where they paid homage to the rock monsters. They had rock monsters in that movie because of that. So it's just very silly. That's where my mind goes. As Rybo can tell.
The thing, you're right, Rybo. The things Ryan knows. Was Star Trek V even good? Is that one of the good?
It's on many people's lists as one of the worst sci-fi movies ever made.
Oh, noted. Duly noted. Okay, cool.
It's bad. It's the Starship Enterprise is trying to find God in space, but God needs a starship to leave his planet, which Captain Kirk responds with, "What does God need with a starship?" Just what the heck am I doing watching this movie?
Wow, that was an interesting side tangent, but yeah, the things Ryan knows. Star Trek V, rock monsters.
Clearly, they're connected to Dragon's Dogma 2.
Apparently, but anyways, it's more closely related to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild rock monsters, where just a bunch of floating rocks coming together, and it's like I don't know, it's just not even a human being type of thing. But like the combat is very good. It's very solid. It reminds me of Monster Hunter a lot, which is not a big surprise because it's from Capcom and it's probably from similar teams. And then you kind of choose your vocations, and there's a lot of the combat is good in terms of just like there's a lot of depth into staggering, timing of attacks, elements, and like what kind of attacks like really like kind of hurdles or staggers a monster versus like what doesn't. And like the rock monster, that's one thing. It's like you figure out that physical attacks really don't work, and a lot of magic attacks don't work unless you do rock type moves against it, which was pretty interesting.
But wait, it's a rock. Why is the rock allergic to other rocks? That makes
I don't know. It kind of so you just try different moves to see
what
how
works?
the monster reacts. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, there's some insane combinations that me and my pawns do. Like those are the memorable moments in this game where it's just like everyone's kind of synchronizing together with their attacks. I got a bowman shooting down arrows. I got me throwing down lightning, and I got my two melee people just like destroying a monster. And then like you can get some insane damage going on if they go down, if you hit them at the weak points. It's very nice. It's a very solid combat. And as I said before, the story, it's nothing to write home to. It's fine. It's not a bad story in any of the sense. It kind of just I feel like the story is just a vehicle of you going through the game. It literally is. It's just you kind of really traversing, like all across this world map, and what kind of roads does it go. And yeah, there's absolutely no question marks or anything like that, like places of interest. Only your pawns can tell you places of interest. You find treasure chests everywhere, so on and so forth. Yeah, that's pretty much it. What I have with Dragon. Let me speak about the vocations a little bit, because I think that adds another flavor to the game. So as an Arisen, you can change to any vocation or class. They just call it vocation. And you start off with thief, fighter, mage, and archer. And then so I start out with archer, and then throughout the game you get more vocations. So I tried a vocation called warrior, which is like a two-handed weapon, whereas fighter's like a one sword, one shield. I tried archer. It's very nice, very cool. And then I have sorcerer as well, which I've used a lot, and I made a pretty powerful build of sorcerer, which I love the magic attack. I think the magic attacks are just so good in this game. You just you destroy monsters, and you just let your pawns do the tank and interaction with them, and you just in the back just destroying them with lightning and rocks and whatever. And then the last one that I've gotten two more. So I've gotten the trickster recently, which is kind of their newest kind of show off class, where they fake monsters into like illusions, and so they kind of like attack mirages and stuff like that, and so they get very confused. It's more of a support class than anything. But I also got the mystic spear head or hand, I don't know which one. It's a spear weapon, but it's like it's literally Jedi. It's literally Darth Maul.
Of course it is.
No joke. You have your two-sided lightsaber. You're holding it out like in the middle, being all Darth Maul like running down, and you just go crazy. And it's like it's a mix of magic and physical attacks. With that class, it's super cool. I'm playing that until I think there's a magic archer vocation that I'm pretty interested in. I'll have to look if there's any more, but those are the ones that I've gotten so far. Yeah, no, very cool.
I like a good magical archer class, Garret, because I've seen those in other games, and I'm like, man, more games should do that. Like have more like, ranged physical classes crossing over with magic, because like we always see in like MMOs as an example, you'll usually see like a class that's a physical class that, also like a melee class that also crosses over with magic, and they're
right.
Slinging spells between, hitting the enemy. But like we don't see that often with archery classes.
Yeah. I've seen some videos of it, and it looks pretty good, too, so I'll be looking forward to grabbing that. It's much later in the game. There's not so there's like 3 continents of this game, and I've gone down to 2. I've explored 2 of them. Man, Ryan, you really gotta worry about traveling in this game. You gotta make sure you are prepped. If you're going to one place, you're just like, okay, am I prepped? Can I come back? That's the thoughts you have to go into your brains. Like, can I come back to this area if I need to? So on and so forth. But yeah, no, this is a good game.
Nice.
Yeah.
I know you were saying earlier though, like you were mentioning that you were like, kind of losing interest a little bit. Like, is it just feel like it's going on a little too long, or you just kind of, is it just a little bit monotonous, or
yeah, I think I've seen what it wants to do, and it's like not in my wheelhouse.
Okay.
Just because I think, I'm not entirely surprised, because this is more of a rehash of Dragon's Dogma 1.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I think 1 can be a little bit better for me, just because it is more of an actiony hack and slash type of game compared to this one. This one is slow. It is a slow pacing game. Oh, no. It's a slow. It can be slow combat. There's some faster vocations, but at the same time, they don't do much damage, or there's just a lot of monsters involved. So, I think Dragon's Dogma 1 hit me at a good time, just because I wanted to try a different RPG, and at the same time, it was more of a mindless hack and slash for me, specifically. Whereas this one, it's taking just a little too long for its bridges. It's just like, okay, I gotta go to the other side of this, and let me try to explore everything else, but I've already done this, and I've done this move over and over and over again. But this is just me, I complain about this, but I don't complain about turn-based RPGs. It's just like, what are you, Garrett? Are you going crazy? It's just like, no, it's just, that's just how I feel, I guess. I don't know.
No, they're just different flavors, though. Like, I totally get it. Like, it's like, I've talked about it before, where I like, turn-based games that sometimes could be slow-paced over, something like Dark Souls. Because one of the things I don't like about Dark Souls is like how slow and clunky the combat can feel at times in Dark Souls, where it is like overly plotting to the point where like I just can't get into a game like that, because it just moves too slowly.
I think what really bugs me about the combat in this one, and same for Dark Souls, is that once you get attacked, you flinch. Okay. And then so you can get constantly flinched, and so you can be in a bad situation very quickly if you're not careful with your positioning of your character. And same, it's like the same thing for the Soulsborne type of games, where like you don't want to be in a position where all the monsters are just attacking you, and you're just a dead, like, one shot right then and there. It's a very similar feeling. But also I think what spices it up with the vocations, that you level each of them individually, and so you rank them up, and it's pretty, I wouldn't say it's like super short, but it doesn't take that long to max them out. And you can get all the special moves that are behind each of the vocations. So, there's the game kind of tells you, hey, switch up your vocations between your main pawn, and just try things out. Because it really is a totally different game when I'm playing, let's say, a sorcerer versus an archer versus a warrior versus a mystic. It really is. It's a totally different type of combat feel. So, but you're only limited to 4 special moves. And it's so weird, because you have to hold your left bumper, and then it's just the face buttons.
Yep.
The 4 face buttons. And I'm like, come on, guys. Like,
I mean, that's what the newest Assassin's Creed games do, though. Like with your 4.
Well, I mean, the vocations are like, they're meant to be. It's a class. Like, you want all these special abilities that you want. Like, it just feels like, hey, here's your special moves. And you get to customize them. It's these 4 buttons, really, and you constantly want to do those. Whereas I think Assassin's Creed is just more. Those feel like a bonus to me, more or less. So yeah, I feel like these are more essential than.
Well, it's also
the
too
regular
like I
pack.
think you probably get more spells in this or abilities in this game versus Assassin's Creed Valhalla or something.
Yeah, and you really got to pick and choose because you only have 4 options, and there's many different cool options in when you're kind of unlocking all the different abilities. You can, and I would look stuff up online. It's like, hey, what's a good combination of skills to put together? So yeah, that's pretty much what I have with Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm still enjoying it. I just feel like, okay, let me be on the main quest so I can kind of just go through the game.
Makes sense.
And the main quest, it really takes you through everything. So it's not a short time just because you have to walk. You have to literally travel all across, all around. So yeah, I still need to get to the 3rd continent and get the magic archer, and that's pretty much
Nice.
Pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, you mentioned it before, but hopefully when you do finish, hopefully we can find someone in the community that has played this game as well, so that you guys could do like a sit down episode about this, because I would love to hear more, but I'm just not the person who I haven't played it, so I'm probably not the person to do that. So we'll talk about that in the future. But
sounds good.
As for me, Garrett, lately, I don't know what it is, but like I've been in a rut when it comes to role playing games where like I haven't wanted to like. It's been a while since I've had the inkling or desire to play a role playing game that's not Final Fantasy XIV. So I've been playing a lot of palate cleanser games lately, as far as like I've been playing a lot of retro style games like Contra, or going back to old games like Shadow Dancer on the Genesis,
of course,
or playing the horror game, my most recent game, Alone in the Dark, the newest one, which I ended up actually posting on X yesterday, that I ended up giving up on because the game is so buggy. It's just I can't play it. I talked about
hear it's rough. I hear it's like. It's good, but there's a lot of faults to it.
Yeah, I talked about it on PlayStation Drive in greater detail that I'm going to talk about it here, but it's just like, to quickly sum it up, it's actually a game I liked a lot. There's a lot of great things about it, and it's just ruined by the fact that my character every couple minutes gets stuck in the environment, and I basically go out of bounds, and I have to like dash for 30 seconds to a minute to get myself back in bounds.
Oh, that's tiring.
So I don't get murdered by some nightmare monster that'll one shot kill me, which happens a lot. So I kind of put it down to figure like to wait for more bugs to be squashed. So I was like, okay, well, what am I feeling like I want to play next? And Garrett, it kind of hit me. I've my desire to play role playing games has come back a little bit, because I picked up a little game off my shelf called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
This little game, and it's like literally a box.
literally a box.
Special edition Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah. This is the deluxe edition.
I like the holographic front of that. It reminds me of playing cards. Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Well, you've got Queen's Blood, the card game, in this, which is
yes, I know.
Love, so
I know.
But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I'm going to get into it here, but Nagachaka has a question first.
Sure.
Kind of tee things off. Nagachaka asks, questions specifically for Ryan. I know you'll be going into more details on the PlayStation Drive later this week, but give us a little taste on your thoughts and feelings on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, since you just started the game. So I literally started playing last night, Garrett. I started playing it at 11 o'clock at night, and then 4 hours went by, and I was I should probably go to bed soon.
Maybe
because I was enjoying my time with this game so much. Like I feel like I'm back with role playing games
back
after playing VII Rebirth. First of all, I'm just like kind of kicking myself, Garrett. Like I didn't play this game sooner, because this game is awesome. I almost said a square there because of how awesome it is. I'm really, really enjoying it. One of the things I enjoy more about this version is it is much closer to the source material than Remake was. Okay. It made sense for Remake to go a little bit off the rails as far as the content, because of the fact that they were basically taking the first 8 hours of the game and turning it into a 30 to 40 hour game.
Yeah, just Midgard.
Yeah, so they obviously had to extend that by a whole lot and add a whole bunch of other stuff, and some of it worked and some of it didn't. And You could definitely feel the fluff that was there, like the filler was definitely there. Whereas with this one, it starts off with something very unique that I won't get into, but it kind of blew my mind with like how this game starts. I'm like, we're doing what now? What's going on here? What does this mean? And then of course it doesn't explain anything, because later in the game I'm assuming it's going to reveal all the answers to what's going on. But it starts off in the village of Calm, with the flashback to 5 years ago, with how Sephiroth turned evil, and I really enjoyed that. Although I did already play that from the demo from before, and liked it there, but it was cool to go through that again. And then after that, you then kind of leave Calm and you have the big open world. And it brought me to literal nostalgic tears, Garret, where you go into the open world for the first time, and this beautifully orchestrated version of the Final Fantasy VII, open world theme song plays. Yeah. And you're exploring the world, and I'm already looking around and seeing landmarks that I recognize from the open world from Final Fantasy VII, the OG version, and I'm just like, dude, this game gets me. Like, in all the fields, to the point where then, some of the places you go, shortly after Calm, like Chocobilly's Ranch and stuff like that, you've got all the like new renditions of those original songs. And it's just between that and the fact that the combat is so much more improved this time around from Remake the original. It's still, an action RPG. It still very much feels like Kingdom Hearts in a lot of ways, which it's not my favorite thing in the world. But the combat felt just so much more fast-paced this time around, where you're not sitting there trying to stagger enemies for a while, although I imagine that's going to happen a lot more with some of the boss fights. But this game's awesome. I can definitely understand why people are loving this game, why it got amazing reviews, and like I can't wait to just, as soon as we're done the podcast tonight, just playing more.
You're just going to go through it?
Yeah. Well, I'm nice, getting ready to cross the swamp. I'm getting ready to end Act 2. And I'm having a ton of fun with it so far.
Nice. I want to ask, how are you playing it? Because I hear that it's like kind of an open zone type of area. Like you kind of go through the first area, you can kind of main quest line it, or you do all the side quests. So how are you doing that?
I have been doing a lot more exploring than I usually do. I recently unlocked the ability to, scale these towers and activate them kind of like, Breath of the Wild or Far Cry, where it then, gives you more information about the area. So I've been doing that, doing some of the optional stuff. I haven't gotten to a lot of the mini games and stuff that Nagachakan's been telling me about that are later in the game.
There's so much.
But I have played a few rounds of Queen's Blood, Garret.
I hear that's the card game. That's all. It's the new card game.
It's the new hotness.
New hotness.
But
sure.
I don't know if I love that game very much. I think it's fine. I think Queen's Blood's okay, but yeah,
I hear it's pretty good. Like it's Gwent level. So I'm keenly interested. Of course, it'll be a while before I hit Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
I was gonna say you've got so many other Final Fantasy games you have to play first.
So. No, so many Final Fantasy VII games.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah.
Oh man. But okay, so I played through a good chunk of the original 7 a few years back, and dropped off in the open world zone, and I remember. I think I just what lost my interest, that I just didn't know where to go, kind of deal. And so that's part of an old video game deal. But should I have a guide with that part, do you think?
With Final Fantasy VII, the original?
Yeah, the original, yeah.
I would say you can get through it without a guide, but I would say that maybe you should play with a guide just in case. Or just have a spoiler-free guide handy, just in case you need to reference something.
I think after Midgar, I just want to make sure I'm touching all the different. I'm not missing stuff, That's my only worry. It's just like I hate when I miss stuff, and I know I can miss stuff.
Well, it's one of those things where it's still an old school style RPG, Garret, where it's one of those games where you have to talk to everyone in town, and you have to pay attention to what they say so you can figure out where you go next.
Gosh, I have to read, darn it.
All right. So it depends on how much of that you want to pay attention to, as to whether or not you use a guide or not.
But yeah, when you said chocobos, I'm like, oh, I remember the chocobo region.
Yeah.
In the original.
I was gonna say, because it's one of the first areas you go to when you leave Midgar. It's because you need to catch a wild chocobo, so then you can cross the swamp, so that the Midgard serpent, which is the giant serpent that
I
patrols the
faced that
swamp,
thing.
doesn't murder you.
Oh my god, I faced it.
Yeah, it instantly obliterates your party at that level.
Oh, I thought I was so under level.
Yeah, no. It's supposed to murder you, which is why, like, the
interesting. Okay.
When you visit Choco Billy's ranch, he's like, "Hey, just so you know, the Midgard serpent's out there and he's gonna eat you. You got to take this chocobo materia and go out there and catch a chocobo so you can ride across."
That makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. You're jogging my memory here of my playthrough. But anyways, I'm so glad that you're getting back into role playing games, getting back into Rebirth, or getting into Rebirth.
Yeah.
It sounds like a very cool open world RPG.
Yeah.
Than anything else.
I definitely like the fact that, to the point you mentioned before, Garrett, how it's open zone rather than in one big open world, because I actually prefer that. Like, I love games like Rise of the Tomb Raider and stuff like that, where the open world is much more condensed, and kind of broken up into zones you go to. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the exploration element, especially as, like, someone who's played the original game. I'm geeking out going to certain spots in the first area that
nice.
So,
what kind of party do you go with? One party, or do you mix up your characters?
So first off, they make it pretty easy to switch between 3 preset parties that you can kind of make up. Okay. So you can have them on the fly, because all of your party members, Garrett, contribute to the battle, even if they aren't in your 3-person party. So they're attacking you from the outside, or you can actually equip them with materia, so then they'll actually use their spells or their other abilities when they're not in your party. So I usually roll with a very set of 3 characters that I really enjoy playing as, because you can only play as the 3 characters in, like, the 3 main characters in your main party. So I usually stick with, right now I'm sticking with Cloud, Tifa, and Red 13 as kind of my main party members right now. But, like, in certain situations where you're fighting, where you're up against flying enemies, like, you want to make sure you have someone like Barrett in there, because Barrett has a gun hand, so he can shoot the enemies in the air, and it makes the battles much easier. So you've got certain reasons why you'd want to switch out the party members.
Cool.
And I'm excited to get more party members, because I still don't have Yuffie or Sid or any of the other characters yet. So
Sid, another one of those.
There's always a Sid, Garrett.
There's always a Sid.
Except for Final Fantasy 15, when it's Sydney instead of Sid.
Of course. 15 had to throw everything up. I feel like that's the redheaded stepchild of Final Fantasies. That and 8, I would say.
I mean, Final Fantasy 15, Garrett, is the only Final Fantasy game sponsored by Cup Noodles. So,
jeez.
Also, shout out to Ribo, who asked, of course, on the scale of 1 to various day life, what number would you give it so far? I'd give it a various day life out of 10.
Oh gosh,
it's the greatest game according to Ribo.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Ribo says it's the greatest game ever, so I have to go by his opinion, I guess. But,
oh boy.
But either way, I'll be talking about this more on the PlayStation Drive as we go along, because Garrett, we're 45 minutes in the show. We haven't even touched metaphor yet. Probably,
I guess we kind of have to go through that.
We kind of have to go through it. Now, obviously, Garrett is staring at a giant page of notes that I took from the showcase.
It's freaking huge, man.
We're obviously not going through all of this, and we can, some of these points we can go through pretty quickly, but I wanted to make sure we had all the information in front of us for us to talk about metaphor, because for folks that don't know, today on the day we're recording this, April 22nd, 2024, we got the showcase from Atlas all about Metaphor ReFantazio and a bunch of information about it. Because it was basically like a 25-minute presentation, basically showing off a bunch of the game's mechanics, talking about the story, talking about how it's different from Persona. So I'm excited to go through it with you. First of all, Garrett, did you have time to sit down and watch this tonight?
I did watch this. Yes. Let's get through it, because I have some thoughts for sure.
Okay. So first off, to kind of tee things up for folks that don't know, like Nagachaka, who told me before the show, he had no idea what Metaphor ReFantazio even was.
Oh, really? Wow.
Metaphor ReFantazio is the new game from Atlas and a lot of the Persona team as well as Studio Zero specifically is the main studio under Atlas that's working on this. Because we do know that the Persona team is kind of split on this, working on this, but also working on Persona 6 at the same time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this game is basically their first new IP though, since Catherine. So a very long time since
that's since like what, 2010, 2011, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, Shin Megami Tensei 5, came out in that time frame too, but like I'm not really counting that. That's not a new IP or anything like that.
Right.
So, but Metaphor, it takes place in this interesting world. First of all, it's like a steampunky kind of fantasy world it takes place in. And you play as the nameless protagonist, like the Persona games where you name your character at the beginning of the game. They literally showed the name your character screen that they have in this game, in the showcase. And you're competing in a contest to become the king. And to do so, you have to basically gain the king, the support of the people in the kingdom. Because I guess there's some spell that happens where anyone in the kingdom is allowed to become like a king because it triggers this election, essentially. So you're basically going out there and earning favor. That's essentially how you're progressing the story in this game. But what's interesting that they noted in the showcase, Garret, our current reality exists in Metaphor ReFantazio.
Yeah.
But it's a story, or it's like fiction, essentially, which is weird.
Yeah, it's their fantasy world.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh, okay, so I guess we're gonna hear stories that have some grounded, like, reality context, but it's the inverse, it's a flip side of things. So I'm interested to hear how that integrates into the game and the story as a whole.
They didn't really speak too much about the story. It was just sort of a quick blurb at the beginning, where they talked about it. So that's why, like, there's still a lot of details about the story that we just don't know at this point.
Yeah, which is good. They don't want to show everything.
No, and I'm glad that they didn't. But where they really went into things, Garret, is the systems. They went really in depth with some of these systems. So let's talk about, I broke the systems up into a couple of different categories, Garret. So let's start with the exploration and the combat and kind of how that goes together. So first of all, this game, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, is actually open zone based. They mentioned that in the showcase that it's not an open world, like it's smaller open sections that you travel to using this airship. And it's actually closer to like what we saw in the smaller open zones in Persona 5, but they're larger in this game than the Persona 5 open zones, because they showed some of them, like even some of the towns are like way bigger than any of the areas you visit in Persona 5.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Yeah. So it's cool that there's like a big open thing here. Combat, though, of course, is turn-based. It's very turn-based traditional, but we knew this before. But on the open world, you have access to light and heavy attacks as well as an evade, like a dodge ability that allows you to defeat weak enemies before going into combat. So you don't actually have to fight in turn-based combat at all. You can just beat them up with your light and heavy attacks like you would in an action RPG. And then if you actually get the jump on a bigger enemy, you then can use those same attacks to like really put a dent into some of the bigger enemies. Like they showed these like manticore enemies that you fight in the open world, like these lion kind of scorpion enemies. And you would take down like half their health before fighting them in the turn-based mode. Right. With the action stuff, which is really cool. And I don't know if you noticed this, Garret, but like there was like a really cool animation when you go into the battle, when you get the jump on the enemies as well. Like it shows like your main character, like it's like glowing and stuff like that. It looks really cool.
Yeah, no, overall the animations are looking really nice. I think I do remember that. It's a little busy. I feel like this game is very busy with its animations. And I think it's because of its art style in general. But yeah, no, it looks so good. It's interesting to hear this kind of blend of action and turn-based combat. Of course, this is not the first game to do this, so I don't want to give the roses exclusively to this game, but it looks really solid. Yeah.
I will say that the games that have done this in the past, though, Garret, like they haven't done it in a way like this where it's been this clean, though.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the battles in the open world are going to go very quick. Whether you're killing the enemies on the open world or even with the larger enemies and you transition into the turn-based battles, I don't think a lot of those turn-based battles last very long.
I see.
I feel like they look like they're going to go pretty fast. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle bosses, though, because they didn't show that off here. So we don't really know, like, can you get the jump on a boss? Are you doing action RPG stuff against the boss? Or is just all turn-based, kind of like the Persona games? Like, that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, or like a mix of both. I can see them pulling a Persona 5 where there's some type of special mechanic or whatever twisted into each of unique bosses. I'm very curious how the story's going to go and how that integrates with bosses too. Yeah. Just because I can feel like your main character will have competitors in some way. And I'm wondering if you have to face them. That would be pretty cool.
I would imagine so. Because again, like, it's a big contest for the throne, right? So like, I would imagine you're fighting other people in the contest along the way. Right. But I also think there's going to be like some other twist on top of that that's going to maybe even take the story in a completely different direction.
Yeah, pull a Xenoblade Chronicles series, like there's actually a secret organization that is pulling all the strings, you know?
Don't even start. But I mean, like, what's cool about where they're kind of shaping up with the story is it's totally different from anything they've really done before. So right. I just like how refreshing it is that they're telling something different, like telling a different type of story.
Yeah.
But with the combat, they showed off showcase moves from Persona 5 are back. So what they talked about is, like, you have, instead of personas in this game, you have archetypes, and each character in your party has an archetype associated with it, which then is like associated with a certain class. And the archetypes are basically like monsters that are based off historic figures or heroic figures. That's the wording that they use during the presentation. And then basically when you build up a meter, kind of like the Thurgy meter in Persona 3 Reload,
right,
you'll then activate it and become like that historical being and do some big super move. The one they showed off was like one of them riding a train into the enemy and dealing a ton of damage. It was so ridiculously stupid, but I loved it.
Yeah. No, it looked really cool. It's definitely a Persona game. like when you saw that, I was like, oh, there's the Persona flavor in there for sure. Is the combat. So.
Yeah. But what's interesting about the archetypes, Garrett, was that you can customize them for all the characters. So it's not like the other Persona games where you only customize the main character. You're customizing it for your entire party. But then they also mentioned as well that you can have one archetype for all 4 characters at the same time. Like, they showed off, like, you can have 4 brawler characters if you really wanted to, or you roll in with a party of tanks or party of mages if there's like an enemy that's like weak against magic or something. Like, you could really like hammer home a certain archetype if it makes sense in the combat.
Yeah.
But also what's cool about it as well is that the archetypes themselves level separately from the main player characters, similar to Persona, but you gain additional stats when the archetypes level up for your main characters. And then when you switch archetypes, you don't lose those extra bonus attributes. So it actually encourages you to mix and match the archetypes quite often. So then you can, level up not only the archetype themselves, but then also give your your character additional abilities and stats and stuff like that. Which I think is like a really cool idea, because it's because then it feels much different from something like Persona, where you're really just usually sticking with a lot of the same kind of stock of personas generally for a lot of the game.
Right. Super cool.
Yeah. Now, they also mentioned as well that the music that you hear in the game is entirely in the main character's head, and it's composed by Shoji Megumi, who did the music for Persona 3, 4, and 5. Which is, I'm excited to hear some of that music because, of course, they do awesome music. You can also ride around on your sword at any time like it's a skateboard. Of course, we saw that before.
I thought that was interesting. It's like a hoverboard.
Yeah.
Just going around the city or whatever.
But what happens if you have like a super tiny sword, like a short sword or something? Like, how are you supposed to ride on that, Garrett?
I don't know. I think it's just magic. It's just like a dagger. I think the guy just balances on on the little needle or whatever. I don't know.
It's so weird. That would probably take a long time to like get the hang of, Garrett. How to do that. And then the last thing I had under here as well was that they talked about the dungeons a little bit. So first off, there's no palaces in this game or anything like that from Persona. There are main story dungeons and side dungeons. And the main dungeons are going to be story-based, but they're going to be smaller than palaces are. So they're not going to be as big as the normal palaces are, but they're still going to be pretty large, they said. But then there's a ton of side dungeons, they said, which are much smaller in size. But they're all like found all around the world, and they give you a bunch of different stuff, and they're not required to play through to get through the main story. But I think I actually like that approach better to something like Persona. What they do is they have kind of the main palace that you're doing for each case, and then you've got mementos as an example from Persona 5, which is just one big sprawling dungeon. Like I feel like there's probably going to be a lot more dungeon variety this time around.
Yeah, definitely. I guess they're trying to add a little bit more variety to their game, and that's certainly one way to do it is these side dungeons. So we'll see how that goes. I'm curious how different and what kind of they say it's because of side quests you're going into these side dungeons. So I'm curious how that's gonna go, because there really wasn't, there were requests or whatever in Persona, but it really wasn't like here's a side quest of going to a completely different mission or something like that. So very curious how they figured that out.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a ton of them, because they mentioned specifically on there, like this quadruples the dungeon content they've had in any of their other games.
Yeah.
So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of dungeons, so it's going to be really interesting to see how they pan out, or to see how well they're put together as well. Because I know that was a lot of people's complaints with something like Persona 3, where they didn't like kind of like the procedurally generated dungeon, like it didn't feel as special as the palaces are. So I wonder with that many dungeons in the game, like how special some of them are going to be. But I guess we'll find out. But the last thing I want to touch on, Garrett, is the traveling and the day system that's in this game. Because first off, they mentioned there's no fast travel in this game at all. So basically, early on in the game, you gain access to an airship called the Gauntlet Runner that transports you from place to place. So you start kind of in like the main castle town, and then the story takes you to other places. But then, depending on how far away your destination is with the airship, sometimes it's like a day or two away travel time. So you're basically, instead of having it fast travel, you're then, exploring the ship, talking to your crew members. Like, this is going to kind of take the place of, going and, interacting with your social links at night kind of thing from Persona. I thought this was like a really unique take on this idea, but what do you think about this idea, Garrett? Like having to like find stuff to do while you're on your way to a destination.
It's actually pretty interesting. I can see where the inspiration comes from. Where I think of Miyazaki and some of the traveling machines that he has in his movies. I think of Fuga. Was it Fuga Steel or something like that? I don't know.
Fuga Memories of Steel?
Yeah, Fuga Memories of Steel has a very similar type of vibe where all your characters are in kind of this mobile vehicle and then you use that vehicle to interact with your other characters and bond with them. So it's pretty interesting that they're taking this mechanic even further with the day cycle. I'm interested how this integrates with the pacing of this game, I'm just curious, like, okay, how much do I pay attention to the story? How much do I do side quests? How do I,
how do you balance all of that out? Right?
How do you balance all it out? And at the same time, how does this part, how do you manage it? Because it sounds like you're going from the central hub to all of these other different places.
I was gonna say, because like I'm showing on screen on the YouTube video, but like in this top right hand corner, there's like a day counter that you've got there, where you basically have that many days to get to like finish your next objective. So like I imagine it's like Persona, like by the sound of it, where you only have a certain number of days to finish the like whatever main story mission you're on or main story dungeon that you're on. Before the story kind of progresses from there. So like it sounds like you're gonna have to like really calculate out your days as far as how long the travel time is gonna be to get to some of the side stuff. And like I wonder how that, you're right, Garrett, I wonder how that balance is really gonna play into things. Like, are you gonna have enough time to do all the side dungeons and stuff like that, or are you gonna need to do like a second playthrough to do everything?
Uh, yeah, I bet you kind of have to, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued about this game. It looks pretty different. Like there's definitely, some elements that are very familiar with the Persona games, but at the same time, they're really stepping out of their bounds in terms of just art style, in terms of story, in terms of like just a game pacing in general. Like they're really trying to explore with this game. I'm interested to see how this goes.
Yeah, the main thing is I like the fact that they're taking chances with some of this stuff. And you know what?
Yeah.
If one of those things happens where like if the game comes out and some of this doesn't work, I appreciate the fact that they at least tried and they'll know for like, okay, for the next game, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, and here's what we can maybe roll into Persona 6 as an example. Because I think a lot of the elements in this game, Garrett, are going to make their way into Persona 6.
Oh, for
like
sure.
The action combat, for example, like I'm pretty sure that that's going to be in the next game.
Yeah, I would if they worked it out, pretty great. I would like to see it in the next Persona game.
Yeah.
It really, this type of combat, I think there's also a fine balance with it where you don't want the action combat to be overpowering, because it kind of seems like that from the trailer that it can be like, weaker enemies, I understand. Of course, let's beat them down to a pulp. Let's not even mess with the turn-based game. But if it's something like normal or medium or something like that, it's something like, man, if I take them down half health, that's just like, okay, I guess I'll hit them with one hit and then we're done.
Yeah.
Again, I this is just how I'm feeling or what I'm looking at. So I'm sure I'll have a different opinion once I start playing this game out and seeing the mechanics.
Yeah, I guess it really just depends on like how they balance things. Like that's going to be the tricky thing. Is like making sure that you're right, Garrett. Making sure it doesn't lean too much in the easy column where you're just using the action RPG stuff to because like for what it's worth, like don't get me wrong, I liked what I saw from the action RPG stuff and it felt much better than what I expected, because I expected it to be like one button using your sword to attack them and then not having like combos or other attacks to kind of vary up the combat. So I like the fact that there's more to it than what I expected, but like that's not why I'm here. Like I'm here because I like the turn-based stuff. So like I hope that it is there. Or likewise, Garrett, I feel like the option is there that you just run into the enemies like normal. And you just
you can do that if you want to. Yeah, there's nothing stopping you, I guess.
Yeah, I like that the freedom's there. That the freedom's there where you can do that and it's no problem.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think there's that. I think the art style is. I love the different take of this game. It looks pretty different than any other game I've ever seen. It just reminds me of like a very. I don't know, like a very rustic but also complicated old medieval style, but it's also steampunk.
Yep.
And it's also just a JRPG, it has those anime characters. So it's a melting pot of art styles thrown together.
It's a weird mishmash of stuff.
A weird mishmash.
Because there's like normal cars from like our time that are just driving around these cities too. So it's just like all kinds of weird stuff put into this, but yeah,
that and also the filter that's in this game, I've never seen it like anything before, is these polygons, these gray, you notice that it's not polygons but like gray specks of live streak of lines that are just everywhere in that game. It has, I think they were just going for this artistic style effect. So I'm very curious how that goes, because I've never seen that before in a video game like this. So yeah,
it definitely looks different than anything else on the market. That's for sure. Like it's got its own unique style, which is awesome. So yeah. I don't know about you, but I was pretty impressed with what we saw on display with this game. Like I was already, pretty excited for this game, going forward, like a brand new IP from the Persona team and from Atlas. And it looked already like it was doing a lot of different stuff, but like after the showcase, I'm like, I'm ready to play this one. Like I honestly don't want to see more of this. I'm just ready to play it when it comes out, which by the way, I didn't mention, they announced the release date, Garrett. October 11th.
October 11th.
It's coming out, and there's a standard edition, but also a collector's edition which I'm very excited about, because I don't know if you saw the collector's edition. It looks awesome. Because it's actually this game, they talked about it during the showcase, but it's like, this is the game that you're using to celebrate 35 years of Atlas, which you're seeing, if you're watching the video, you're seeing me use that in air quotes, because we talked about the history of Atlas on another episode, the Shin Megami Tensei episode, where because they talked in the presentation, it's been 35 years this year since Atlas released its first game, but Atlas released its first game in 1987, Garrett, which is not.
Do they mean Western release, or what's the deal with that?
No, because even if it was Western release, it still wouldn't count, because the Karate Kid, developed by Atlas and released in the States, released in November of 1987.
Okay, so 1989. So why did they chose that year?
I don't know, because in 1989 they had the sequel to Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil story, and then they also had Friday the 13th on NES, which they also developed. They released both of those in 1989. So maybe it's one of those. I don't know, but like, it's very odd to me, because they're talking about this being like the big 35th anniversary celebration for Atlas, but I'm like, y'all missed it by 2 years. That was 2 years ago.
Okay, it became a video game publisher of its own in 1989.
Okay.
I think they were going with
maybe that's what they mean?
Yeah, because they said Atlas was established in April 1986.
Yep.
Spent its early years as a video game developer and became a video game publisher in 1989.
Okay. So maybe that's what they mean. That's why I was like, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. The dates don't add up. We already knew what Atlas's history was, but still, I mean, God forbid, they can't forget about the Karate Kid, Garrett. No, we can't forget about the Karate Kid on NES, developed by Atlas, of all people.
Yep.
But good God, that game sucks. But October 11th is interesting, Garrett, because this is probably like the farthest game away that we know the release date of at this point. Because like, there's no other games that have like October release dates at this point. So.
Yeah. We don't have any major games. Gosh, really later this year, or at least like set dates or anything like that.
Yeah, before this, like we had like Space Marine 2 in September, and then Star Wars Outlaws at the end of August.
Yeah, Avowed is somewhere in there, but we don't have a set release date.
Nope. Yeah, because there's a lot of games that are like supposed to be coming this year, but we just don't have release dates for them. Like Avowed, Avowed probably is in the same window, maybe even the same month.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe.
God forbid, they'll probably release it the same day and make it.
Oh my goodness! Please don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, just like this week where we've got Iodine Chronicles and Top Spin and like Tales of Kinzara Zhao and Stellar Blade all in the same week. I'm just like, what are we doing here? What is this?
Yeah.
But
so okay, October 11th, I put that in my calendar. Very interesting of the Xbox marketing going on in this showcase.
Yep.
One would believe it's exclusive to Xbox. No
one
joke.
One would believe that, because there was literally Xbox logos and no other logos all over everything.
You and I know it's coming to PlayStation.
Yep.
In Steam.
Well, I mean, Garrett,
right?
I already pre-ordered the game, because I pre-ordered the collector's edition as soon as it went up. So,
okay.
On PlayStation.
On PlayStation, yeah. But, you know, when you're looking through this showcase, it's just like, man, this is a cool Xbox game, because you got the Xbox literally game case.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
The Xbox game case, and then at the end of, like, when they showed both trailers for the game, it then had just the Xbox logos.
So weird.
Yeah. But they did the same thing for Reload as well. Like, Persona 3 Reload, all the trailers had just the Xbox branding on them.
I think I'll get it on Xbox. I think Atlas is my Xbox is my go-to Atlas machine now.
Okay.
So bye-bye PlayStation. You're my first party machine.
It was really Persona 3 Reload on Game Pass that just won you over, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But this is one you actually have to pay for on Xbox, because it's not coming to Game Pass.
No,
so. I
definitely will, pay full price for this thing.
Although it'll probably come to Game Pass at some point. But
maybe. I wouldn't, I just wouldn't count on it. Maybe a year. Because, Star Wars Jedi Survivor just got recently announced to Game Pass.
Yep.
I got Diablo 4. I got Dead Island. I don't need to buy games.
True.
with Game Pass. I really don't.
Now you understand why Sean Capri made his entire thing this year, just not buying games at all.
Yeah,
Just playing them on Game Pass.
no joke.
Or from the library.
But yeah, I'm pretty excited for this game. I'm not saying I'm as excited as a Persona game per se, but I'm curious how this goes and what they do to it. So.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is like, I'm just glad that they're trying something different, and I'm excited to see how this experiment turns out. And also, I'm excited to see how much of the stuff transitions over to Persona 6 whenever we get that announcement. But
yeah.
The real question I have for you, Garrett, this is a question that's been going around in our Discord tonight, so I wanted to make sure to ask this.
Yeah.
Since you weren't like a word to sucker like me and didn't already pre-order the game, I want to know from you, are you picking this up day one, or are you going to wait a month for Black Friday where it'll probably be half off?
Oh, I don't think it'll be half off Black Friday.
I don't know. Unicorn Overlord was half off 3 weeks after it came out in March. It's still on sale right now.
That's Vanillaware. I think I'll be day one.
Okay.
I think so.
Because Reload was also half off 2 months after it came out.
That's true. It did come down in price quite a bit, but I think day one is fine with me.
I was gonna say you probably don't want to miss out on this game too. So there's probably that.
Yeah, but I'm not a physical collector guy, so I think I'll just, when it gets close, I'll be like, all right, it's time to pre-order it digitally and get on my library. So
yeah, the thing that won me over with the collector's edition, Garrett, was like it comes with not only a bunch of like cool stuff to celebrate Metaphor, but then it also comes with like a 35th anniversary Atlas art book that then goes through like the history of Atlas and has like
so cool
art and stuff from the rest of the series. And then also comes with multiple CDs that have like the best songs from Atlas on them. So stuff like that, like I geek out about some of that stuff. So it's just like,
oh no, for sure.
That's why I want to get that version, before it sold out. So that's why.
Did you get it on the Atlas website or
no? Because in Canada, there's only one place to get it. That's Video Games Plus is the only retailer in Canada that you could buy it from. Because if you order it from the Atlas website, it's like $200 to ship it to Canada. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. No, Video Games Plus like they're located in Alberta, and they so I should be able to get it on day one when it comes in.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, that was the cheapest option to go with. But they're, for whatever reason, they keep getting these exclusives from Sega, where like Unicorn Overlord's collector's edition was the same way, where like they're the exclusive seller in Canada for these collector's editions. You can't get them anywhere else. Whereas in the States it was available at GameStop and a bunch of other places.
Right. I've been meaning to ask you, how's your Unicorn Overlord playthrough? Are you kind of tempering that down now?
I mean, it's on the shelf. I never went back to it because I was in my JRPG funk, Garrett.
I understand.
Just couldn't go back to it. Like I tried a couple times and I'm just like, I can't get into this game. So I ended up putting it back down again. So I think the mission is once I finish Rebirth. Because I feel like I'm pretty in on Rebirth at this point.
Yeah, it's jiving.
I feel like I need to finish that first before I consider going back and finishing Unicorn Overlord. But I want to.
Okay.
Because I need to. Because Kevin Ainsworth asked me if we could do a conversation about it. And I'm like, I kind of need to finish it first before we do that, I think.
Nice. Sounds good. I've been having, just other games I'm mentioning, I've been having huge Fallout fever. Like,
yep.
I want to go through another playthrough. Like I'm getting hives right now just thinking about doing another playthrough. So I feel like after Dragon's Dogma 2, that's like kind of top of my list.
Okay. So you're going to play the Fallout 4 or Fallout 76? What do you think?
I'm going to do Fallout 3 because it's been a while since I played 3 and I haven't played the DLC of that game. So yeah, I'll go through 3 once again. I would like to go through New Vegas again. It's just we'll see how timing-wise that is. And then I've been playing a little bit of 76, dabbling with it. I think it's fine.
I was just about to say I made a note to ask you about it because you said that like you think you're turning around on this game a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to think about this as a Fallout game necessarily. Yeah. It is definitely more of a multiplayer / MMO type of game where you kind of just go through the different mechanics but it's just in a Fallout world, in a Fallout setting. I think they improved a lot with the NPCs. They have some NPCs and they have some quest-driven stuff, which is great. They have the base building stuff, which is great. But I think, of course, its strength is the multiplayer and going through that. But I'm enjoying just tidbits. I'm playing 30 minutes or something like that. I'm not knee deep into Fallout 76, but I would like to play with others if they're.
I was just gonna say, I know plenty of people in the community are playing. I mean, V and Sean have been playing a lot, so.
Oh, that's cool. That's so cool.
Yeah,
but I definitely need to go back to 3 because and it plays so good on Steam Deck. It's nice. So
I'm actually I think I want to try out Fallout 4 when we get that patch on Friday.
Okay, sounds good.
I think I want to go back. Like that would be the one I would want to go back to because that was the one I always wanted to give a second chance to, but I never ended up doing that. But the perfect opportunity is sitting right there with the new patch to do that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Fallout 3, I know that's a game that I love. And I know I could probably go back to it and still have a good time. In fact, I booted up on PlayStation streaming, Garrett. Fallout 3, the PlayStation 3 version, streaming to my PlayStation Portal.
Oh my
in
goodness!
Bed, and it was a trip, man. It was a trip. Let me tell you what.
Wait, okay, so so you were streaming? It was running on your PS5, but you were streaming from the Portal.
So it wasn't running on my PS5. So first off, I don't know if you knew this, Garrett, but with the for PS3 games, because Fallout 3 is not backwards compatible on PlayStation 5. So I streamed it through PlayStation Plus, and then to my PS5. That then streamed it from my PlayStation 5 to my PlayStation Portal.
So how was the lag of that? How was the delay?
Actually, it was not bad.
Okay.
It was actually pretty decently playable. I didn't really have any problems with it.
I'm just letting you know, Steam Deck is just you just play 3 forever.
But I don't have
natively 60 frames. You don't have to worry about this.
But I'm not getting a Steam Deck just to play Fallout 3. I have standards, Garrett. Standards. I'd rather just go buy an analog duo to play TurboGrafx CD games instead.
I don't know what you just said, but okay, sure. All right. Sounds good.
I mean, my traveling companion for bedtime or for travel is usually the Analog Pocket instead. So I can play Game Boy games.
Analog Pocket is great. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Before we go, Garrett, 2 very quick questions from the community. These will go quick, Garrett, because number 1, from Ribo, he asked the question, if you were to make a carpool gaming role-playing game, who or what would be the antagonist?
Antagonist?
Yeah. Who's the villain? Who is the villain of the carpool gaming role-playing game?
I feel like Lockleth would be the most interesting one. Just because I think she just brings an order of chaos and calmness at the same time. She's a cozy gamer, but at the same time, I have a sense that she has this inner demon chaos just ready to unleash upon the world. So there you go. That's my answer.
You mean Metal Lockleth? Metal Lockleth is the alternate personality of Lockleth.
Ah, okay, got it. So she has is it multi-personality going on there?
Kinda, but actually, Garrett, I think most of the staff would agree, besides you, that I'm probably the villain of the carpool game. Game.
Okay.
Because everyone says that
you are the villain.
I was gonna say because she might Lockleth might have a dark side to her, but I'm clearly the evil one.
You're very intentional. Yes,
I'm the one who nuked Megaton 12 out of 13 times I played Fallout 3. That I am.
See, there's something wrong with you when you do something like that.
There's nothing wrong with me. I just wanted to see the world burn, Garrett. I
can't even do that once. I know I could do it. It's damn it, this is not the playthrough.
Whereas not only could you not do it, but I not only pressed the button to blow up, to nuke Megaton, but I laughed maniacally while doing it.
My goodness.
Because that's just who I am.
What was the quest called again? It's something hilarious too.
I don't remember the quest name off the top of my head. Yeah.
Anyways.
It's been so long since I've really gone through Fallout 3. So, but yeah, I did that a lot. But also, like, you know, other games, like other morality-based games, like Knights of the Old Republic, I'll always playing a Dark Jedi.
Yeah,
or
you're Dark Chaos, yeah.
Or I play like Infamous, and I'm always choosing the dark side, and just murdering all the pedestrians and stuff. Like that's just evil is just who I am. So I've embraced that fact. That's why I'm the Dark Lord. That's my class for the RPG Cave. So
well, I mean, I thought you were meaning like other people, but yeah, no, you're the obvious one.
I mean, Rybo just says who is the antagonist of the Carpool gaming role playing game, not the RPG Cave role playing game.
That's true.
So yeah, it's slam dunk. And then
slam dunk.
Skinny Matt asked this question that I don't think either of us can answer, but I wanted to at least acknowledge it anyway. So Skinny Matt says, I'm currently playing Yakuza Like a Dragon. I just got the ability to change jobs/classes for the main character. What are the best jobs and classes for the 4 starting characters? I'm currently using, Hero for Ichiban, Idol for Sakeo, Enforcer for Adachi, and Chef for Namba. Garrett, I haven't really played that game. So,
okay.
Or I should say I've played Yakuza Like a Dragon, but not to the point where you get alternate character classes, because I gave up on that game after I think chapter 3 or chapter 4.
Oh, okay.
Is where I stopped playing.
Got it. Yeah, I have some multiple classes in each. I haven't really tried so much to experiment with it. So, no, I don't have a recommendation for you, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just kept with one class, to be honest with you. I didn't see any benefit of like, oh, this one class has totally different move sets or anything. I just didn't see much of that in this game, so I just kept it with one class. I think I switched once for like a few characters, but that's about it. I saw the Muffin Mind, Kevin Ainsworth, has some suggestions in the Discord to change up classes, so you listen to him, because I have no idea. I kind of got stuck and failed Yakuza Like a Dragon, so
nice.
Yeah, there you go.
Cool. I'm going to address Star Athena's comment here. Do you experience empathy, Ryan? Lol. I do. Actually, that's the thing, Star Athena, is that in real life, I'm definitely not a villain. But it's just, when I play a video game, I always like to play something that's very different from how I am in real life. So, like, I like to play up the villain because it's so different from everything else you get in normal video games. Because, like, most normal video games, Garrett, when you don't have the choice, you're always usually playing the hero. Whereas, like, if you're in a game where you have a choice, it's like, well, why do I want to keep playing the hero? Why don't I try?
No
the
wonder
other
you
side,
like Fallout so much. You could be such a jerk.
That is kind of how that works.
Like, you could be the absolute worst in like every conversation. You could be just an idiot. You could be dumb. You could be just whatever. Like,
but that's why it's fun. Like, I like the idea of playing something that's like different from my own personal personality.
My question to you is, would you in New Vegas ever pick Team Caesar?
Maybe.
Oh, it's so bad.
I kind of like Mr. House instead, though.
Mr. House, I like Mr. House too. I was very close to joining him. Very close. And so then I knew I could do it myself, so I just went through that route.
It's going to be really interesting because and I'm not going to spoil anything from the Fallout show, but I will mention, I think we're heading in a direction where they're going to have to pick a canon ending for Fallout for New Vegas.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm wondering what canon ending they're going to actually decide on. Like how they actually decide what the canon ending is.
Yeah, there's like 5 different endings or something like that.
Yeah.
With that game. Yeah, I doubt it's it's not Caesar ending or the flight, I forgot what they're called. That the flight faction.
Yeah.
Or
I don't think
whatever.
it's them either. You're right. Like I think it might.
It's not NCR either.
No, it's probably Mr. House's ending, or it's the robot ending.
Yeah. Either or. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm interested to find out. But anyways, Garrett, I think we've talked long enough here. We should probably get out of here. But before we go, we got to thank all of our patrons over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming, starting with our ultimate producers, Tony Baker from the Quest for Pixels podcast. You can check them out over at youtube.com/quest4 pixels today. That's the number 4, not 4 spelled out. Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on the Xbox Drive and the PlayStation Drive. You can check out all of his music over on his Linktree, linktr.ee/pme/jib. Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team. You can check them out over at phoenixoverdrive.com, or maybe head on over to that Extra Life website. Maybe sign up for Phoenix Overdrive and maybe join us in New York in November. And Cwagmire, who humbly reminds you that the best babes are in fact Xenobabes. Links to all of our ultimate producers can always be found in the description of our podcasts. Our platinum producers, which of course the platinum tier being the official tier of the PlayStation Drive, Robby Bobby Miller, Smokin Joe, and Tim Paullin, and our gold members, Adam K, Anna, Awesome Dave 1337, shout out to Final Fantasy VIII, BobLoblaw, Brad Moore, Brian Reese, Cecily Carrozza, CowboyDangerD, CrocoKyle, Dan and Luma, Dannohh, Emily O'Kelly, Yon32, Marcus O'Neill, Peje EP, Shane Erickson, Tim Aulph, and Toxic. Huge thank you once again to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming that help keep the lights on and keep this carpool moving. But now, Garrett, plugs go.
All right, you can follow me at Twitter at Blind Explosion, and you can find me on Discord. I read everything. I read every single message in the RPG Cave. Believe it or not, I do. You guys go crazy over there.
I was gonna say there's a lot of messages over there. It's tough to read through them.
It's a lot of messages, but I go through them. And of course I get into the Xbox Drive and the Nintendo Drive sometimes the PC. Well, it's just PC gaming. There's no PC Drive.
There is a PC gaming, but no PC Drive, Garrett.
Yeah, it's just PC gaming. I poke my head in there once in a while too. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice, man. As for me, you can find me on the old Twitter, aka X, at Ryan Turford. You also find us on X at Carpool Gaming, right here, youtube.com/Carpool Gaming. Of course, podcast services around the globe. So, for Garrett Bland, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been the 134th level of the RPG Cave. Only 16 more levels, Garrett, until 150.
Oh.
And we're out.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.